Recently, I made an update to my best and worst perks video for killers. Now it's time to talk about survivor perks. Let's start with aggression perks, those that are designed to hinder the killer. And the best perk to hinder killers is still Blast Mine, even though it's considered a meme perk by many. What makes it strong is that you don't have to go out of your way to activate this perk. All you have to do is repair generators, which is your objective, unlike Head-On or Champion of Light, where you have to interact with the killer to get value. You will potentially get 6 seconds for free in a game where each second counts, and if you combine this with Residual Manifest, you will also counter Nowhere to Hide. Plus, Blast Mine got a shadow buff, as now the Plague loses her Corrupt Purge if she gets stunned by this perk. On the other hand, for the same generator progress requirement, you get Chemical Trap, a perk that is not that bad, but it doesn't give as much value as Blast Mine. First of all, you need to use this perk on a God pallet to get value, as most of the time killers can just ignore the pallet and not break it. It also has the issue of disappearing after 2 minutes if the killer doesn't break the pallet, which is something I didn't know before making this video. Again, the perk is not that bad, but it's a gimmick and you have to force the value out of it. Next up, let's talk about Altruism Perks, perks focused on healing and helping others. Coming in hot as a free perk, we have Will Make It as the best altruism perk in the game. This perk activates once you unhook someone, and the boost it gives you is insane. The best part is that it still keeps the effects active 90 seconds after unhooking, so you can reset extremely fast when various survivors come to heal. It also tells the survivors unhooked that you have this perk, so they don't run away and waste value from it. And the best part is that, unlike with Botany Knowledge, you can run a medkit with this perk. As for the worst, I have to choose Autodidact despite how fun this perk is. When you get 5 stacks, this is the best healing perk in the entire game, but in order to get 5 stacks, you need to constantly heal other survivors and also waste more time at the start of the heal, with the biggest problem of this perk being that sometimes you don't even get skill checks while healing others, which renders this perk useless. The only way to make this perk good is to run it with Deadline while injured, but if you want a 2 perk altruism combo, run For the People Will Buckle Up, which is absolutely busted. For the next category, we have Anti-Slug Perks, which, as the name implies, are perks that help when the killer is slugging. And Unbreakable is still undeniably the king of anti-slugging, as it is one of the only perks in the entire game that can completely turn the tides in a lost match and make it winnable. This is the kind of perk that gets value once in a blue moon, but when it does, it's so good that it makes you not want to play without it, and killers have to take into account that someone might be running this perk. The best part is that, unlike other anti-slug perks, it works by itself, but if you combine this bad boy with Decisive Strike, you're basically immortal for 60 seconds. It was meta back in 2017, and it will still be meta for as long as slugging is in the game. Soul Guard, on the other hand, is a combination of various perks in one. The main effect of this perk is the endurance status effect you get when you are healed from the down state, and also, as long as you are cursed by a hex, you can pick yourself up from the ground. Now, the problem of Unbreakable is that killers are not always slugging, so you won't get value in most matches. Now add in the fact that in order for this perk to work, you need a killer to be slugging and also have a hex perk in play, it's extremely niche. So why bother running Soul Guard when you can just run Unbreakable? As for the primary effect, it's just a selfish and weaker version of Buckle Up and We're Gonna Live Forever. Soul Guard is the only anti-slug perk that might not even get any value if you end up slugging, and aside from Unbreakable, it doesn't have any great combos either. Now it's the turn for Boon Perks, once found in every single match, and now they are very rare to see. I personally think that Circle of Healing is still the best Boon perk out of the ones that we have in the game, with the only other decent options being Exponential and Shadow Step. Circle of Healing now boosts your altruistic speeds inside the Boon area and also reveals injured survivors to the rest, so technically this is the only boon that can give you value outside of its area of effect. The only reason you don't see it used as much is because the original Circle of Healing was so game-breakingly busted that even a decent version of it still pales in comparison. And yeah, nothing changed from my last video on this department, because Dark Theory is still trash for the exact same reasons as before. You get a 2% speed boost inside a 24-meter area, when you could run made for this before the nerf and get a 3% speed boost anywhere in the map as long as you are injured. The devs clearly went the safe route with this boon, because we already got proven that haste is a dangerous effect to give to survivors. But even if it were 5%, this effect is just so terribly boring for the character it was introduced with. Dark Theory sounds cool, but it's just a speed haste boon perk. Boring. Let's talk about buff perks now. Perks that provide buffs or status effects to its users. If you told me back in 2016 that Deja Vu was going to be considered not only a good perk, but also one of the best perks in the entire game, I would have called you crazy. As a survivor, you have to repair generators no matter what if you want to survive. So having a free perk that not only gives you the location of the closest 3 generators in the match so you can immediately go and prevent a 3-gen situation by repairing them, but also gives an unconditional 6% repair speed on those generators is absolutely fantastic. 6% might not be much, as it only saves you around 5 seconds out of the 90, which is less than the time it would take you to like and subscribe to my channel. But let me remind you again, this is completely unconditional, so you literally get free value without having to do anything, and this stacks with toolboxes or with resilience. Now compare Deja Vu to Friendly Competition, a teachable perk from Talita Lira. In order to activate this perk's buff, you need to first repair a gen with another survivor, and then you and any survivors you cooperated with will get a 5% repair speed bonus for 75 seconds. So, you get even less repair speed bonus compared to Deja Vu. The condition of it already requires a gen being repaired, which means at best you will only get value 4 times, and it also comes with a 75 timer, so if any of the survivors get into a chase, the buff effect is pointless. The point of this perk is to run it with your friends and get a 20% repair speed bonus that can stack with other repair speed perks, but that doesn't factor in that the vast majority of gens cannot be repaired by 4 players, the fact that any pressure by the killers takes away from the timer, and the fact that this perk just sucks and you should be running Deja Vu instead. Let's talk about the opposite of buff perks. This time it's the support perks. Perks that buff your teammates or are designed to help them in a match. And I still think Reassurance is the best support perk you can bring into a match. While it's true that face camping is not common nowadays thanks to the resolve feature, proxy camping is still a thing, and Reassurance grants a 30 seconds bonus time for the hooked survivor to allow players to make a plan in order to save or force the killer to stay, which is a lose-lose scenario. It is also extremely helpful when a killer stays around the hook in order to confirm the second stage. With just a single usage of Reassurance, this plan of the killer vanishes away. There is a reason why the most cracked survivor teams use Reassurance, and that's because they know how insanely good and underrated this perk is. And now let's talk about what is potentially the worst perk in this entire game, and that is Quick Gambit. This perk's design is really terrible. It grants survivors a repair speed bonus anytime you are being chased near a generator. In other words, it incentivizes the worst playstyle you can do, which is bring killers near unfinished generators, when instead what you want to do is bring the killer far away to let your teammates repair. Calling this a support perk is a disgrace. This perk is terrible and you should never use this perk or try to make a build around it. Your teammates will thank me. Next up we have the most popular survivor perk category by far, as everyone will at least run one of the exhaustion perks in their loadouts. And now, instead of Dead Heart, we have Lithe as the best exhaustion perk in the game. Unlike the other exhaustion perks like Balanced Landing, Smash Hit or Overcome, which only activate in specific scenarios, or Sprint Burst, which incentivizes you not running for the majority of the match. Lithe activates anytime you vault during a chase, making it easier to trigger and to get basically guaranteed value as long as there is a vault nearby. Now don't get me wrong, in terms of pure strength, I think Sprint Burst is stronger as an Exhaustion perk, and in terms of pure value, I think Background Player is extremely busted in a Survive with Friends team. But what makes Lithe good is that, for the average player, it is undeniably the best Exhaustion perk to use. As for the worst, and while technically speaking Blood Rush is not an Exhaustion perk, it is still designed to work with an Exhaustion perk, so it's gonna go in this category. And let me tell you, Blood Rush is bad. This perk was overhyped way back when the DLC came out, and while the idea is very unique, the value you get is not worth the price. Blood Rush only works when you are on Death Hook. You press the active button to lose a health state, recover from the exhausted status effect, and get a temporary 20 seconds of broken, after which you get healed back. You can only use this once per match. You will rarely get value out of this perk as a start, you can only combine it with Sprint Burst, Balanced Landing or Lithe, and it only works if you don't get hit before activating your Exhaustion perk. So the moment you get tunneled off second stage, this perk is useless. Next up we have my favorite category of perks, since most of the time I'm riding solo, Information Perks. This will reveal the aura of interactables or other survivors. And I cannot believe how much I used to sleep on this perk. I thought that a perk that reveals the aura of vaults and pallets was going to be useless, but I couldn't be more wrong. This perk single-handedly allows me to play on autopilot and stop dying due to dead zones. It tells me where the pallets are, which is crucial in order to plan ahead, and it's fantastic for newer players that still don't know the maps nor pallet spawns. There is a reason why this perk is the most used perk in the game by a considerable margin, and that's because this perk makes the Dead by Daylight Survivor experience easy mode. Visionary is terrible, and I would love for anyone in the comments to prove me wrong. A perk that is designed for new players that reveals the aura of generators around 32 meters, and it also turns off for 16 seconds after you repair a generator, which, you know, is the moment when you would actually like to find another generator to work on. It's just bad. The problem is that this perk is locked behind Felix, a character not many new players will have, whereas Deja Vu is completely free, it reveals auras of 3 generators no matter what, and it also comes with a bonus repair speed. So, what reason is there to use Visionary? In my personal opinion, absolutely none. Now let's talk about the emo phase of info perks, the killer info perks. These are designed to help survivors track the location of the killers. And now we have the saving grace of solo queue. Kindred is still one of the best perks in the game, and in my personal opinion, the best perk you can use along with Windows of Opportunity if you're playing solo. Not only does Kindred reveal the location of all survivors whenever a teammate is hooked, you also share the perk effects with the rest when you yourself are hooked. But the key thing here is that it also reveals the killer aura 16 meters around the hooked survivor, and this is crucial information because it tells you if that killer is setting up any traps after hooking, if they're going to camp or proxy camp the hook, or what direction they are going to, so you can start pre-running. This is extremely important as a solo, as it allows you to plan ahead in order to get a safe rescue, and it also allows the rest of the team to help you safely as long as they plan well. Kindred is just extremely good, and the best part, it's completely free. From one of the most used chase survivor perks in the game to absolute trash, we have Spine Chill. The only purpose of this perk is that it lights up anytime the killer has line of sight of you. But there is a perk that does that job better. It's called using your eyes to look at the screen. Even if you have poor eyesight and you need a perk to help you as an accessibility feature, you can run Premonition instead, which will tell you the direction of the killer's location, and use the visual heartbeat indicator, which is just a better Spine Chill. This is a perk that basically only counters Myers, Ghostface and the Pig, all of those being some of the weakest killers in the game. And now we come to the newest perk category in the game, Invocation Perks. As of the release of this video, there is only one Invocation perk, and maybe we will get another one in the anniversary, but as of right now, let's focus on Weaving Spiders. This perk is trash. 2 minutes that can be interrupted by the killer at any point, resetting the entire progress and being broken for the rest of the match to get a permanent reduction of 10 charges in all generators is not worth it at all. This should be called a killer perk. It's way too risky to be considered even worth it, and I find it sad because I love the concept of Invocation Perks. Who knows, words in the streets are that the next chapter will be magic based, so maybe our new survivor will get a cool Invocation perk. Now let's talk about a new category for this video, which are item focused perks. As the name implies, these are perks focused entirely on items. Build to last is as good as the item you pick in the match is, which can go from absolutely busted to not that great. This is a staple on any Gen Rusher build, as it allows you to use a cracked toolbox various times in the same match, but it also allows you to bring back a cracked medkit or a cracked flashlight too. And don't get me started on those use up items archive challenges, because build to last is a godsend. It's just super versatile, and the better you are, the more use of it you will get. Appraisal is a very weird item perk that allows you to rummage a chest in order to search for another item, once per chest. Unlike Plunderer's Instinct, it doesn't make the items inside better, and unlike the other item focused perks, it doesn't guarantee a specific item, so you might get brown toolboxes or useless keys and maps in the worst case scenario, all while wasting time searching through chests instead of bringing a good item into the match already. The only point of this perk is for an item hoarder build, where you go around sharing gifts to your teammates and killers, because other than that, I see no guaranteed value to this perk. Next up, another perk division category I made, as this is the self-heal category, perks that help you heal yourself or heal you by other means. And what was once thought as a meme perk is now the best way to recover yourself from the injured state in an extreme situation. Plot Twist allows you to go down while injured, silencing your grunts of pain, blood pools, and also allowing you to recover from this state like with Unbreakable. After you recover, you will be completely healed and get a 50% haste bonus for 4 seconds to allow you to reposition yourself. And while after using it, you lose this perk, Plot Twist activates once again in the endgame, so you can use it a total of 2 times per match. What makes this perk fantastic is the flexibility it has. It can heal you faster than self-care does, it can give you extra time during endgame collapse, it can be combined with a stealth build to lose the killer while in a chase, it can be used to bypass the mending status effect, and probably the strongest effect it has is that you get to choose where you go down. So you can basically position yourself in a pallet to force a killer to endure a pallet stun with background player, meanwhile you recover with flip-flop power struggle. Can a perk with so many uses be called a meme perk? I doubt it. For the worst self-healing perk, I think it's clearly Solidarity. What this perk does is that 50% of your altruistic healing without a medkit goes towards you, so you heal yourself by healing others. It sounds kinda cool, but the effect is not worth the perk slot at all. It doesn't heal you fully, which would make it interesting to run. It makes you have to heal first to get the effect, so if you're unhooked, you lose the endurance to get value out of this perk, and it gets completely countered by the hemorrhage status effect, the same problem that Reassurance and reactive healing have. My personal advice, unless you run it with Autodidact as a niche build, don't use Solidarity. And now for the final new category I added for this video. We have Skillcheck focused perks, and I think the name is pretty obvious as for what these perks do. Hyperfocus is the definition of this video's nature, as it's the best worst perk in the game. This is because if you're good and you bring a build that is focused on getting the most amount of value, this perk is game changing as it allows you to gen rush extremely fast. On the other hand, if you're bad, you won't get any value from this perk, making it worthless compared to Deja Vu or Fast Track. In a way, this is the perk with the most amount of potential in the game, but it all depends on you as a player and what you bring in the match, as well as your luck. Any chance you give me to trash talk Corrective Action, I will. Corrective Action is a very weirdly designed perk, as it's made with the intention of running it as a good player anytime you play with someone that is newer to the game and they don't know how to hit skill checks, so you correct their mistakes by spending one token in order to prevent the explosion. So, if you're running it solo, this perk is completely useless. If you're not repairing gens with anyone or healing with anyone, then again, it's useless. If the survivors in your match are missing so many skill checks to the point this perk is useful, then you already lost since you won't be able to babysit all survivors in your match. In my opinion, this is by far one of the worst perks to have ever been introduced into the game, and it needs a completely new effect. Next up, we have what is surprisingly the biggest category of perks for survivors, those being the stealth-focused perks. And there is a reason as to why I used Distortion on my thumbnail the last time, and that's because this perk is by far the best stealth perk in the entire game by an extremely wide margin. It completely counters all of aura reading perks and add-ons the killer can run, making you invisible to their detection as well as giving you a warning every time your tokens are used. This means that, with enough knowledge, you can tell what perks and add-ons the killer is running. For example, Lethal Pursuer at the start of a match, Barbecue and Chili after hooking, and those are just two examples. If you don't get value in a match, you still get value, as the absence of use means that the killer is not running any aura reading perks or add-ons. This is truly the only stealth perk that actually enables survivors to play stealthy and immerse themselves. I'm sorry Wigglemaster 5202, but I still think Low Profile is a terrible stealth perk, even worse than Poised or Calm Spirit, which I consider to be extremely bad too. By the time Low Profile activates, the match is already over, and you would rather search the hatch instead, so it's a stealth perk that only activates in the worst case scenario a survivor can be, a perk that can kinda help you in a match once every time the planets align, is not a good perk to equip on every single Dead by Daylight match when Distortion or other perks are significantly more consistent than Low Profile. Next up we have Survival Perks, basically the anti-tunnel perks or perks that will help you not die. Now that Decisive Strike is back at a 5-second stun, it was hard to choose between which of the two anti-tunnel perks is better, but I think in terms of consistency and value, Off the Record is still better. What absolutely shocked me to learn about this perk is that the 80 seconds of aura block as well as the silence of grunts of pain is not removed with conspicuous actions. So that means you have 80 seconds of distortion after you get unhooked, which is extremely good in order to prevent the killer from finding you after you get second stage. And let's be honest, no survivor is going to run off the record without Decisive Strike. Boy Lover was very good way back when it was Giga buffed, but right now it's really mediocre. All it does is make the struggle effects while carried stronger, increase your wiggle progress anytime the killer falls from a height while carrying you, and hide the aura of nearby hooks around you. The thing is that killers have eyes, and most of the time they know where hooks are without the need of seeing their aura. The second effect is also hard to trigger if a map is mostly flat, or if the killer takes the safe route. The intent of this perk is nice, but it was proven that if this were to be too strong, it would be super toxic for the game. So I am glad that this perk stays as a trash perk, and I hope to never see it as meta ever again. Now let's talk about a category of perks that is officially recognized by behavior, those being the teamwork perks which have nothing unique to warrant them being a new category of perks besides both being absolute trash. If I had to choose the best out of these two, I go with Power of 2. But that doesn't mean this perk is good, it's trash. This is literally the effect of Blood Pact, only instead of it being with your obsession, you get a 5% haste boost with a person you heal as long as you stay 12 meters close. By this point, just use Blood Pact. For the absolute worst, we have Collective Stealth, which surprisingly doesn't work like Power of 2. Instead, in order for it to activate, you need to get healed by someone else, and then both of you and the healer have no scratch marks as long as you stay close. However, if you are close to another survivor, that is a literal increase of 100% of your visibility, since as long as the killer sees one of you, this perk is useless. Both teamwork perks have a huge issue, and that is the fact that they have a gigantic 140 seconds cooldown for its effect once it's gone. These perks are designed to work in a survive with friends team, but they don't need strong perks for this. Teamwork perks are garbage, and sadly, a category of perks that I already see being completely neglected by the devs due to how unpopular they are. Now let's talk about utility perks, those perks that have unique effects. Any Means Necessary is a really underrated perk, with the main effect being that you can pick up dropped pallets. Most of the time, killers want to break got pallets before continuing the chase, but some killers will want to keep certain pallets instead of breaking them. So, with Any Means Necessary, you will severely punish them for not breaking it earlier. However, it also works as an information perk, as it will reveal the aura of any pallet that is dropped in the match, so even at worst, you still get value thanks to knowing where the killers are chasing and which pallets are dropped, similar to Windows of Opportunity. Red Herring is a perk focused on deceiving the killer with a fake generation explosion that appears after you enter a locker. You might combine it with Blast Mine to force the killer to kick a gen, or maybe as a trick in the late game part of the match to make killers waste time. But in most cases, it's just a terrible perk and a waste of time. Sad part about this perk is that it has never been good, and it's so bad that most players consider it a meme perk. And finally, let's talk about Endgame Perks, which are those that have effects dedicated to the end of the match. And no matter how many nerfs the devs gives to this perk, Adrenaline is still the best endgame perk and overall one of the best perk for survivors. It's true that now that the effect doesn't work once you're hooked, the perk has lost some of its value. It's still a tight turner perk that can convert an unwinnable match into a 4-survivor escape. The true potential of Adrenaline can only come out when you play in a team, as it allows you to body block a survivor at the end only to get healed back with the last gen repaired, or time it out so that various survivors get the effects at the same time and they heal back from a slugging attempt. However, that doesn't mean the perk is useless in solo queue, as you can still get value now thanks to the introduction of the solo queue HUD that tells you when a survivor will finish repairing the last generator. As for the worst perk, we have Left Behind. The first problem of Left Behind is that all it does is reveal the aura of the hatch when you're 32 meters close to it, so it already starts with the premise that you already lost the match and are the last survivor alive. Now, if the killer finds the hatch before you do, this perk is completely useless. Meanwhile, Soul Survivor, another perk that I consider bad, at the very least allows you to open exit gates in 10 seconds, which can come in clutch in an endgame scenario. So, overall, there is absolutely no reason to run Left Behind in any of your loadouts unless you really think that most of your teammates are trash, which is a terrible mentality to go into a match with. Anyways, let me know what you think in the comments and if you agree with my choices. Thank you for watching and have a nice day. Wait, did I forget about the perk?